All right, thank you all for being here. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Leslie, roll call, please.
Mark DePace,
Here.
Amanda Grubler, Kirsten Gustafson, Diana Howard,
Here.
Matthew Macrer,
Here.
Maureen Sheridan,
Here.
Mike Sabella.
Here.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor? And we will get right into it. Our budget presentation number 5.
Hello, everybody. We have unquestionably traveled a long journey, looking at budget lines for virtually every one of our expenditures for next year. The last one that we'll show you today is the Board of Education line. And really the focus of today's meeting is to fine-tune and hone in on what we want to commit to as far as allocation of money and assigned fund balance and or from our reserves and what tax levy we're interested in going out at. So we'll see again the combination of what happens when we do different factors to try and get to a desired level of revenue for the district. And then it will be on us to figure out how we match revenue to our expected expenditures, or vice versa, I really should say, to match our expenditures to our expected revenue. So as I mentioned, we'll talk about the Board of Education lines today. Tax levy impact on our taxpayers based on $200,000 home. Budget planning around all of the factors that I mentioned. The gap that we foresee right now based on the 63.1 million. Looking at potential retirements and vacancies, and of course areas of potential reduced expenditures that we will need to discuss and consider.
Can you hear me? This doesn't feel on to me.
I can hear you.
Okay. So I'll begin. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to start this evening with looking at the preliminary budget for 1010 Board of Education. And so this is pretty consistent from the previous year. You will notice the current appropriation is quite higher than our initial appropriation. This is due to the New York State School Board Association, some membership opportunities for new board members, and also the superintendent search is expensed out of this line, but projecting for next year just that slight increase, which is similar to the initial appropriation. We also have our district clerk, which is very similar to the previous year, and the last is 1060, our district meeting line for our preliminary budget. And if you notice, 1060,400 also had an increase in the current appropriation due to poll workers, newspaper ads, or printing materials that costs more than we had expected for this year. But overall, for the 26-27 preliminary budget, expecting something very similar.
Those additional costs were due to the JLE proposition.
For 1060,400, yes. So those additional poll worker newspaper ads are, yes. So as part of this budget presentation this evening, we're going to see some estimated tax impact across 3 different potential percentage increases. Here you'll see annual and monthly differences. These are based on current published rates per $200,000 home value. And so obviously if your home was more, had a value that was higher than that, then that would be increased by that number. So this is the 2% increase if that was our tax at this rate.
It's also important to note that the towns won't actually establish their rate until after our budget vote.
Yeah, like April or May.
Yep.
And so these are all projections, and this is typically what we would be looking at this time.
Excuse me, I have a question. Where did you come up with the $200,000 value of a home?
Actually, traditionally, most districts do 100,000, not because they presume that that's the value of someone's home, but because if I had a $4,000 home, I can multiply 4 times. If it's a $500,000 home, I can multiply 5 times. This was a little bit of at least a gentle rise to 200,000, knowing the math is more complicated for people at a glance, but at least it's more realistic. I think the average home value in the district, or at least in Hudson, is around 460,000. But that means that there are outliers all the way down to 100,000, and those that are millions and millions that are affecting our average. We know that.
Because it's trying to find a home under 200 is almost impossible in Columbia County.
Yeah, that's not the presumption. We're not presuming the home costs that. It's just trying to make it easier for math. Because if we said 460,000 or 500,000, if your home was less than that, then you really got a math problem. Not that that's a bad thing, but it would require a little bit more finesse.
But you're basing all of your numbers off of the 200,000.
Yeah, so
Yeah, but
people
you're
can
intended
do
to,
the
if
math.
your
Okay.
home costs $400,000,
Okay.
you're gonna double
Yeah.
what you see.
Okay.
But you're right, it doesn't approach what the mean or the average is right now in any of our townships.
Okay.
And so this is the estimated tax impact with a 3.44% increase, which, as you can see, for annual difference and monthly difference, obviously, that is an increase in an impact. And again, with the 5.8% increase. I wanted to take another look at our reserves. These balances reflect the district's audited reserves at the year end of 24-25 and provide a snapshot of total reserve levels by their category. It is important to note that approximately $900,000 was allocated to support and balance the current year's budget, which is not a sustainable solution. But this is another area to look at in terms of balancing the budget, and it has been used previously. And so I want to make sure that you are aware and really have a sense of the numbers.
The amounts that were used this year are the little asterisk numbers on the left-hand side next to the titles.
So these reserves are established for long-term purposes, such as stabilizing pension costs or covering employee benefit obligations, addressing workers' compensation and unemployment claims, funding unexpected repairs, and helping offset future tax increases. So as a result, using reserves for ongoing operations, that we've been doing, is a one-time solution and reduces the district's ability to manage these costs and risks over a sustainable long-term time.
I have a question on the slide.
Labana?
On the previous slide.
Mhm.
Is there a reason why, like, the employee retirement contribution is so low compared to last year's, or it's because we're not done with the year yet?
So each year, from 23, 24, and 25, that money has been used. So it's been expensed as a part to balance the budget in those categories. So that's why you're seeing every year it's going down a little bit.
Okay.
And employee retirement contributions are one of those factors that have continued to go up rapidly. They usually announce sometime between January and March what the expected next year's rate will be. It did go down just a hair this year, but it's still about 8%. It's been as high as 12 some years, 12%. And of course, in a district our size, that's every employee has this district contributing to retirement. So when it goes up 12%, that's a significant amount of money, and that's what the reserve is able to help us mitigate sometimes. So here's the work. Yeah, it's trying to figure out what the best fit is for the district to try and bridge the gap between our anticipated expenditures and our proposed revenues. As we talked about, she showed the 2%, 3.44, and 5.8. And, Hudson, like many districts, hasn't really benefited from foundation aid this year. There actually was a slight reduction of about $58,000 in our BOCES aid without explanation. Other than that, it's remained relatively flat. So all the accelerating costs that we've described in the previous budget meetings, health insurance, retiree benefits, the people's salaries, those have continued to go up, but foundation aid has remained flat. That's about half of our income. So since that income has remained flat, that means the other half that taxpayers are responsible for needs to accelerate to make up for the gap left by no raise in foundation aid. We're able to find about another $175,000 in revenue, miscellaneous revenue, between last meeting and now. So when you look at other revenues down here, this number's gone up from the last meeting that we had. And we continue to brainstorm both with our friends at Questar, people in the district, colleagues who are doing this work, to try and figure out if there is any other revenue that we could anticipate as we move forward. So the 0% tax levy is, if we went out 0%, we would generate $26,362,000 and change, all the way up to the 5.8, which is up here, $27,892,000. Did I do that right? Yeah. And you can see really the difference between 2 and 5.8. We're generating about an additional $1 million. We've talked before, that in general, 1 percentage point on the tax levy is about $300,000. So the math, comes to make sense as it comes together. And there's some different allocations for unassigned fund balance. We can use 0 up to all of it if that was our choice, but we recognize that there would be no room next year. There would be nothing that we could do. Either we would have to have a tax levy that was double digit to try and bridge the gap of our expenditures and revenues, or we'd have to significantly reduce workforce to try and meet that gap. The idea is to try and figure out the best combination of ways to achieve what we need to do to close the gap between revenues and expenditures. And we keep putting 3.7 million down here as an example. That leaves 4% in our unassigned fund balance, which is about 2.7 million. It truly is the will of the board to do that, knowing that next year there's that 3.7 million is gone, and we'd only have the $2.7 million to work with to do whatever we needed to do: insurance, transportation, special ed costs, whatever. So it's a dangerous balance. It can be a dangerous balance, trying to figure out where the right middle ground is. We give a recommendation of half this value as well, so you can see what that would look like if we didn't take the whole 3.7 million, instead taking 1.8 and the revenue that's generated in the end. We estimated 63.1 million in expenditures for next year based on everything that we anticipated that was in the budget this year and was not in the budget this year, but we did it anyway, and that for all kinds of reasons. We've talked about those reasons, including summer school, including some additional staff, including some additional programming. That was just, it was not budgeted. We did it, and we expended that money. And as we come into the end of this year, our treasurer is estimating that we're going to be pretty close to spending what we allocated. So they're not anticipating at this time $500,000 or $1 million left over at the end of the year. That would be very difficult to do with our revenue and expenditure plan for this year because it didn't represent everything that was being spent. So this is the hard talk, like I said. Where does the board's comfort and where are we comfortable for our taxpayers? How much money are we comfortable expending from our unassigned or our reserves? Just like this year, we took $900,000 from our reserves to ensure that we were stable in what the expenditure proposal was. No easy answers.
Well, I guess I'll start it out if you're waiting for a comment. I'm not comfortable at all raising the taxes. I had said last time we met that all the assessments went up, my taxes doubled. I pay $586.93 a month in school taxes, just for school taxes. So I'm uncomfortable with any of those increases.
What do you think about making up the shortfall then?
I'm just in panic mode right now, just to tell you the truth. I'd like to talk about other ways that we can look at. I prepared to present an idea that I don't know if anybody thought of. Has anyone thought about changing the vet assignment for junior and senior high school and make it one, and then reduce the administration costs in the junior, senior high school? And maybe open up the health insurance to different vendors so that we can have some competition there. Again, panic mode because, again, retired people don't have a lot of money, and I'm here representing those people.
I guess in terms of holistically looking at this table, which is examples, go all the way to the right column. If we raise taxes 6% and we use up all of our excess unassigned fund balance, I know what the next slide says, but we're still going to have to cut millions of dollars. So the situation we're in is a function of not having access to the money to pay for everything. If we did that and still cut, to your point, the excess fund balance will be gone at the end of the year, next year. So all we'd have left is that 4% cushion, which on a straight line of doing that would mean $1 million in cuts next year because we just wouldn't have the money to do it. And we'd spend our account to zero, essentially. So in year 3, we'd be looking at just another devastating dollar amount. So in my opinion, I'd like to use the unassigned fund balance row that's there in a measured way to give us time to adjust in a meaningful sense to that disastrous cliff. I think there's more conversation we're going to have around this, but I'm more inclined to aim for $1.8 million of unassigned fund balance for next year because it gives us roughly a 4-year ramp to use the fund balance as a cushion to try and get things right. So
It's a matter of extending the mitigation. It's not a matter of eliminating it.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a magic new revenue that's coming in. Our expenditures are our expenditures. So it's a matter of, as you're describing, is it now? How deep is now? Is it 2 years from now? How deep is 2 years from now? And all the other unknowns that we encounter.
yeah, and to your point about the state aid, I mean, state aid is half of our budget. It's half of our revenue sources. This state aid number is less than what we got this year.
Yeah, it's
So we
shocking.
actually are seeing a slight decline in our state aid. If half of our revenue is flat or going down, tax is the only number that we can control. So, you know, if expenses go up 2%, tax have to go up 4%. You know,
Right.
that's the math of the situation here. So, I think we need to, I think those are the two variables we're talking about basically, is the tax rate and how much
Yeah.
unassigned fund balance. I think we need to try to smooth out the unassigned fund balance over the next few years. I know some other tax rates were put up in previous meetings. I don't know that we can pass anything above 5%, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I should have further explained that. I think based on our discussion from last time, our desire was to push off the EPC $400,000 interest expense into 27, 28, which the highest possible percentage we could go out this year is 5.8. So that, if we made that decision to push it off, because we'd said if we decided to pay it next year, we'd have to allocate 400,000, and the tax rate could be 7.33. But we thought better to push it off into the future, because then also we'll begin to get aid on it. So it won't just be 400,000, we'll get the return on it in the following year. There's a benefit to it.
And two questions just about revenue. How does our federal aid, which is also questionable, how does that factor into this, these formulas? Is that stuff that, none of that stuff is in our general fund?
No.
So it
It's
doesn't affect
baked
this number?
into our foundation aid, the formula we see from the state. And you're right, initially, the governor or the state was giving every district the consolation prize of 1% on foundation aid, and I think that in the latest run has disappeared. There are some districts that are getting a lot more money, and we're not getting that. The other thing is, I mentioned before, we're a hold harmless district, meaning that if they decided to rerun the formula, and which is based on student enrollment, we would suffer a consequence for that as well. They're using old numbers as a basis for this for most schools in New York State, and most schools have had a reduction in student enrollment. So I don't consider any of it a blessing, but it's another ticking in the background. If they decided to make that adjustment, it would immediately harm hundreds of school districts in New York State.
I think to Diana's point, that there are structural things we need to look at. We can't fix all of them right now. Health insurance is a big one. I don't know what's going to happen with that. It seems like the state is going to have to step in. It's a cascading issue for all the districts. But we can't really control that, I think, right now. I don't know that there's the ability at this moment to seek another option.
We're working with a consortium in an effort to try and mitigate that, and so that means all of us. I mean, there's a lot of Questar schools in the same consortium. It is the discussion among the superintendents is whatever are we going to do? I made that statement last time. I think that I left a group of superintendents and someone said the only program we're going to have left is insurance. Nothing else. That's all we're going to be able to afford to pay for. And it is affecting every industry. Every industry can charge more for their products. We cannot. I mean, we can to some extent, but it's not as simple as extending our issue onto our customers. It's not as simple as that, obviously.
Well, and just to add to that sort of sentiment, even before this meeting, I was just doing a quick search online, and you can find districts across the state that have 4 million, 5 million, 12 million, 15 million, $100 million deficits that they're trying to deal with right now. So it's not really a unique situation that we're in, unfortunately. But you want us to give you an answer before
yes.
you move off this slide.
You know what? How about we return to it? Because to Diane's point, let's talk a little bit more through expenditures, see what we're talking about. But I will tell you that there are no small things that we would be able to eliminate that would close a gap of this magnitude. But let's talk through the rest of it, go back to this, because I think there are a lot of consequences, and we need to fully understand all of them in order to engage in a better dialogue. So this was, yeah.
If you go back to the whole beds code to make the junior, senior high school as one, you could share staff, you could share counseling, you could share administration.
I believe we should probably hold off on talking about personnel here, because it's a public forum and easily identifiable who we're speaking about.
Yeah, it is a good idea, though. We will definitely
Yeah,
talk about it more.
we can certainly talk about it.
Yeah.
So, as we had stated, here are some of the budget gaps. So it's basically taking the previous slide and addressing it within 63.1 million. So you can see along the bottom the gap that we would need to close in expenditures. In other words, we'd have to lower our expenditures to arrive at these numbers. Even with the highest possible proposal, there is a significant gap in what we'd need to do. And as I talk about any of these positions, just because their retirements are on the screen does not mean that they're not being filled again. Okay, because there are some unique positions that you simply cannot do without them. So I'm just, as a point of note, we don't have a lot of retirees. Retirees are great because when you rehire, it creates breakage. The amount of money of the new employee is almost always less than the outgoing employee. So districts frequently save by breakage alone. So without insurance, those positions, sum total, is worth about $500,000. We have 2 CSEA that retired this year, and we've already filled them, or are about to fill them, and 1 clerical that still remains unfilled.
Well, I have a question. HTA means like teachers, right?
Say it again, the bond?
HTA means teachers?
Yes, Teachers Association. Thank you. And that encompasses a lot. It's psychologists and social workers and a lot of different people. So out of this list here, these are vacancies or retirees that are currently in the 63.1 million. So you can see those 5 teaching positions are still in there. Superintendent, assistant director executive director, you can read the rest there. Some of the people have left recently, and we're actively seeking to fill them right now. Some of them may not have left yet, but they're budgeted for next year with the anticipation that they will be filled.
Is the current transportation supervisor leaving?
He's a consultant right now, Mike, so we just wanted to point out that he may or may not be here.
Okay.
He's, it would be his decision, our decision.
Okay.
But that is in there for next year.
But when you put them in the new budget, do you have like already an expected salary you're giving them?
Yeah. In addition to staff, we know that staff salaries are by far our most overwhelmingly large part of the budget. But some other areas that we're thinking about trying to reduce our expenditures is efficiencies around transportation. When I come back to the table, I want to talk to the board about their awareness or their sensibility around the way that we're transporting our kiddos in district right now. Software, Cheryl's been doing a review, meeting with principals and us to say, what are things that we haven't been using enough because we have software that tells us if we're using software to tell us, what the frequency of usage is. Some of them are quite expensive for the limited use that they're getting right now. So we know that there's going to be some savings there. We've already identified about $50,000 in software that we could probably do without going in next year. Every building has equipment lines as well as our departments. They have supply lines. We have field trips and contracts with BOCES for various things, like instructional coaches and things like that. Summer instructional programming. We did high school a 6-week credit recovery high school program last year. We did extended school year for our students with disabilities. We did elementary, we did a summer program and basically all the buildings, but in considering like what is sensible for us moving forward from a budgetary standpoint. Extracurricular activities, much to my disappointment, I'm watching what's having to happen in neighboring school districts, and they are making hard decisions around extracurriculars and athletics as well, which we know some of these things are the reason that some of our kids come to the rest of the day at school is to get through to those things that they love so much. But I did notice in some local proposals, in an effort to bridge the gap, they eliminated freshman sports, or they eliminated something in order to try and close the gap so they could keep people in school during the day. This the level of choice that we're talking about, is preserving our program and the people that work here to the greatest extent possible. So we are very fortunate to participate in CTE, New Vision, STEM, Tech Valley, and BARD. And we've been very good at contributing our students and our monies to those programs in order to allow opportunities for our kids that are beyond the walls of these buildings. Last year and the year before, we had a very large increase in our students who were attending CTE. You see this year's count, 37. Last year's count was 35. Before that, 29, 29, 27, 28. It remained pretty level. The interesting thing about BOCES and about all these programs is that they actually average over 5 years. So we could send 100 students next year, but we wouldn't be paying for all 63. They would average over the last 5 years, and we'd only pay whatever that average is. So if you had, like, don't make me do the hard math. If you had 4 years of 10, and then in that last year you decided to send 20, you'd only be paying for 12.5. I think that's about right. Nobody's checking. It could be 2. It's 2. The answer is 2. Because no, it's not 2. Well, I'll come back to it, but you get the idea. So
15.
listen, by making these
50 divided by
reductions,
4.
we currently have 3 juniors and 3 seniors enrolled. Our intent would be to allow the juniors to become seniors. So we wouldn't be removing anybody from a program. That is, that's sacred ground to me. Same thing with in CTE. We have about 20 juniors or ungraded students who will be moving to their senior year. They would continue. The proposal is just that we send less new ones going into next year. New Visions is only seniors. So those are 4 seniors in New Visions. We would consider sending 3 next year. Special ed they're just that special programming. STEM, you can see we have 5 there now. We have a senior graduating. We wanted to send 4 next year, so the kids who are there would stay there. Same thing with Tech Valley. Tech Valley is interesting in that you enroll in 9th grade. STEM might be 2. I haven't had experience with it. So you enroll in 9th grade, and you're there for your 4 years. It's a 4-year program. So again, we don't want to disrupt the kids who are there. But for Tech Valley, sending 1 new student instead of 2, which we have sometimes in the past. So here's the thing about -14. Next year, because within the last 5 years, we were sending a lot of students to BARD. Somehow, as the program started up, they were given Hudson the gold deal, where we were paying $1,000 to $2,000 per student. That's not the actual cost. Every other district, I think, might have been paying the full boat. It's about $12,000 to $13,000. They are now charging us the full boat, but we are still averaged with the 10, 8, and 7 that we did 5 years ago. So the good news is BARD's coming down drastically. That's probably the largest savings of all of ours if we don't send any additional students next year. But next year, we're looking about a $30,000 savings by doing this, because it takes time to get our average down. And in the following year, it'll be another 10,000, and in the following year, it'll be another 15 to 20, and 4 years from now, it'll be $100,000 savings. So it'll float down, but it takes time to get to that full savings. The only other caveat I will mention is we are aided back for all of this. So if we spent $1 million this year, we would get $360,000 back next year. Is that interesting aid calculation or consequence of you need to spend 10 in order to get 360 back? So
Can I
It's-
ask a question?
sure.
Does reduce, in terms of, we transport students to some of these programs. Do we pay that by the run, or do we pay that by students? By reducing students, does that reduce transportation or not?
I was keeping all that secret because that's the next thing that's heartbreaking.
Called a segue, sorry.
Anything that doesn't go directly over to the CTE center over here, which BARD is thankfully at the CTE center along with the CTE students. Any of the rest of them assume that it's plus $80,000. So bring kids over to New Visions, $80,000. To bring students to STEM High School, $80,000 in transport.
Regardless of the number.
It's an unavoidable, we don't own our own fleet, we have to, but there is it won't save in transportation as we continue to send students there. So we won't see any savings in that. The only thing that I will say is, I've asked a lot of hard questions about how we're transporting. That's why I say in like transportation savings, if we are transporting kids from their door or from this school all the way up around all of Albany over to SUNY Albany, the campus where that looks like a ship, we cross how many school districts? A lot. So, my preference would be, even though it's not convenient necessarily for kids in the program, but we need to generate money savings. The days of the door-to-door it can't happen. We just can't support it. It's going to have an effect, a continuing effect on people who are here in the buildings day to day. So we are looking for efficiencies around that.
Is it possible to work with other school districts?
That's what he's saying.
As far
Yeah,
as,
that's what
okay,
we're
that's where you're
talking
going with
about,
that?
Yeah.
So if we bring from here to Ichabod will take them from
No,
there
he's
to,
saying transport.
Yeah.
We would pick up kids. Our buses would pick up
okay.
from other school
We just go as
districts.
far as them, and then they, like a shuttle, we go to
If
one
from here to
district.
Ichabod from
Yeah.
up farther and then, okay.
Yeah.
Does
That's
it-
not to say that we don't have anything going on like that. Bill talked about some of those things when he presented transportation.
Yeah.
And they are thinking about them all the time, and we've been very fortunate to make some partnerships with other districts to try and lessen the impact, transportation impact.
Does it change if it no longer goes door to door, if it's pick up at the school?
I would imagine it would change slightly, yes. I think for us, because of our later start time, I think it becomes an issue. The reason why we've been doing door-to-door is if their start time is 8, we wouldn't be there until,
We have to pay a
9.
staff person to be here to ensure
yeah,
safety.
they get an early start in order to get there. But, as Mike's conjecture is if we drive to Chatham or we drive to Ichabod, we've just taken the first 10 minutes of the trip, and their kids need to be there on time, so. And I'm using those as examples, but that's where we want to aim.
Well, could that be one of the requirements? If you're in that program, you need to be here earlier.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's always about equity too, and I'm surprised that, I've mentioned on the board before, like around field trips and some other things that we do that we don't fully fund. We're putting onus on our families. We're about 66% poverty rate. There are unquestionably families that's a lot of impact. So we would always be really conscious about anything that would require students to like self-transport here. But similarly, because it might exclude kids who they wouldn't have an opportunity because they can't, get here in time.
Okay.
And we have no public transportation, which is sad too. That would help in some respects, but we don't have that. So I could just do this, but I want to ask, I want to have a dialogue around it because again, we have a lot of students who want to go, quite frankly. I think we might have had a record number of students want to go to CTE this year. It would mean that some students would stay in programs here. They wouldn't have access to it in their junior year. They could do something else in their senior year. They could go to BARD or maybe to New Visions, but this limits opportunities of some of our kids. And 29 is where we were 3 years ago. And our student enrollment continues to go down. So I mean, I see the last 2 years as an anomaly. This year and last year, we were very fortunate to send more students. But it wasn't our normal. And again, that was another budgetary expense that wasn't accounted for. You send 8 more students, that's $100,000. We paid for that right now without an anticipation of having to pay it. So we did get a little aid back on last year's, but only 36%.
So do you know, are there students this year who are
Unquestionably,
want to go to BARD or want to go to
yes.
STEM or Tech Valley and won't be
Yep.
able to?
We would be having to tell them they couldn't go.
As I say, some of those, I think Tech Valley has probably already done their drawing for the coming year, so there are students who are anticipating going.
Well, I do know that Tech Valley and STEM, I think only 6 kids went to the info sessions.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there wasn't
Yeah.
a huge turnout. I don't know how many actually applied. My hesitancy with this, taking this route is, one of the things we really need to prioritize as a district is having a cohesive curriculum from K all the way through 12, and there hasn't been a whole lot of discussion about what that looks like and what opportunities our students really want to have, and so I personally don't feel like we have a lot of data to base this off of, especially given that in the next year it would only save us $30,000. So, there's an option to punt this until next year when we can have multiple conversations about it. I would personally prefer that, but it might not be an option.
Yeah, to tag along with that, I mean, coming into this meeting, my thinking was that anything that directly connects to the students should be we should try to be our last resort to cut and take away from. Obviously, every part of our district is going to be touched by this because it's a lot of money. It's a huge deficit that we have to make up, but I'd like to talk about some other ways that we can cut back. I mean, I'm not against this, but I wouldn't prioritize it, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It directly affects students. The only reason we even proposed it is
Well, you have to,
our human beings that work here also affect students.
yes,
That's
yeah,
the
100%,
That's the hard decision.
yes.
Do all the schools pay the same price for these programs?
Yes,
Okay.
now. And they do range, they range right now between 12 and 14. They're not all exactly the same price. And they'll probably escalate somewhat. They usually do going from year to year.
Can you do any negotiations with them to say,
No,
no? Okay.
unfortunately. The 5-year averaging they did really was intended to soften the blow for districts who were inspired to send 10 more students, but they knew they couldn't afford 10 in the first year.
Okay.
So it does work both ways, right? It's to their advantage when we're trying to bring it back down, and it's our advantage when we're trying to bring it up. So I appreciate the sensibilities around it. So are you saying that you'd like us to try and maintain the same numbers of enrollment going into next year?
I'm just putting it out there that, I mean, we have to look at everything, and I think, I'm okay with making cuts here. I mean, you didn't eliminate it completely, I think it makes sense. I just, generally speaking, if we can avoid it completely, I think that would be awesome.
I've-
You can go first. Would limiting the amount of students who could go into each program affect it or help the budget in any way, or is it?
It would help our budget. It would affect their budget, but not by very much. Like I said, look at the breadth of all the programs, the fact that it would only affect them $30,000 is not very much. So as I said, like the averaging is great for them because they can better predict and transmit into the future. Like if we decided to send 3 less students, there, could be a class of 14 kids. They could do it with 11. It's not going to have that big an impact on them or be able to still run it. But the good news is they now have the ability to mitigate a loss of students by still having our income.
But our transportation expenses are still the same, regardless if it's
It'll
one
go up, I
or 10.
promise. Yeah.
Okay.
But it doesn't go down
Unfortunately.
by reducing the number of
Yeah,
students.
that's, okay.
Yes, yeah.
I value the consideration of not removing students who are in four-year programs. I think that is extraordinarily disruptive to their experience. So I think that that's making the best of a tough situation as a possibility. I mean, that being said, these programs are incredibly valuable to the students that go to them, and provide a reason to be in school. So anything is tough to cut. I'm not saying yes or no. I want to see all the options.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I have another question.
Yeah.
Like, is there a huge difference between having a bus and having a van specifically? Like, if you limit the number of students who can go and have them go in like a tiny van instead of a
I
bus?
couldn't hear you, Levon, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Does it change, like, is there a huge change if you limit the number of students and have them go into like a van compared to like a big bus?
That is a good question. From a transportation standpoint, I don't know how we're transporting them, quite frankly. It would always be a less cost if you could put 4 kids in a van, no question. Yeah, the expenses go down precipitously. Those are questions that we ask. Like I know I've seen students getting into vans early in the morning. I don't know which direction they're going, but we can certainly talk about it with Mr. Muirhead and find out what's real and what's imagined. Yeah. I was just going to show the next slide, which is just simply the calculation. I was averaging about 13,000 per student enrollment, and you can see this is only CTE, okay? It doesn't include BARD or Tech Valley or the other ones, but CTE is the easiest one to grasp. So you can see the enrollment numbers I was talking about. Sorry, we're at a 35 and a 32 here. So the average is very slow to go down until you get down here with about $13,000 per child. So it takes that long to get from 413,000 to 356 in reductions. And again, the other programs aren't reflected on here, and our return on reducing numbers in the other ones is a lot faster because the numbers are smaller. If you have 6 and you're reducing by 3, immediately you can see the reduction in expenditure. So like I said, we estimated about $100,000 in the 4th year. I agree that these programs, they change lives, they change the trajectory for kids. It gives them opportunities and skills that they can't necessarily get here. It's just a consideration for how we mitigate and close the gap. Now I'm going to go back to that slide that we don't want to look at anymore.
Well, can we go back to just the slide 12 that has the list of other things that we could?
Sure.
Next one.
This one?
Next one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, transportation is obviously a big one. If we said we want to cut $1 million from transportation, how realistic is that of a goal? Do we know yet if we can get by with less runs than we currently have? Like, how would that affect?
Let's have the conversation now.
Yeah.
So transportation has gone up about $1 million over the last 2 years. Some of it not accounted for in the budget, which is again why you are at this balloon stage. We are accounting for it. This is what's real. This is the work that Mr. Muirhead's been doing, is making sure those contracts were approved by the board. They become aidable only at that time because they're real. And then we get state aid back, in our foundation aid, that big run that comes from New York State. Apparently, and I'm new here, so I'm just kind of trying to talk from what people have been describing to me. Apparently, we still have bus runs that were modeled when we had a whole bunch of different schools open, not just the 2 buildings. We have individual bus runs going out and picking up just kids K2. We have buses going into the same area and picking up kids 3-6 or 3-5. And then we have 612 buses going in on top of those 2 buses. They're crossing each other's paths and driving by each other every single day. Because at one time, they weren't going all to the same building. And I know that like 6th grade has moved back and forth between intermediate school and the junior high. So there were probably discussions around when is it right for my 2nd grade child to be on a bus with a 6th grader or my 2nd grader with a 12th grader. I'm going to grab the list of routes. Be able to more accurately describe.
Here.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 21. 21 bus routes in district. That does not include if we have special education transportation that maybe is specialized for students who live here and go to school here. Doesn't include the bus runs out of district, the ones that are for CT and the other programs, or for our special ed students that are housed other places. We have a bus that takes just 6 to 8 kids. We have a bus that takes K5 and then picks up 4 or 5 students. We have a K3. You see the chaos, right? The discussion I wanted to have is, where is our sensibility to say all the buses that go to Greenport will pick up which kids? They're going down a road in Greenport. Are they picking up the kids that are on that road, or are they only picking up kids who are in 6th through 12th grade? We make that decision and take this 21 down to 18 or 15. Every time a bus leaves the station, it's $80,000, about. That's a really fast way to try and regain some of our funding. But before we messed with what this might be 25 years old system, is we really want to talk about what can we do that looks like every other school district. Any smaller school, a 1 building school, they're sending 1 bus and picking every single one of their children up on that 1 bus. It isn't necessarily typical for us to have 2 buildings with the same start time. It's not uncommon to have 2 routes. We don't want to do that. But I mean, it is common because a district who owns their transportation would have 12 buses and they'd send them out twice. Because you already own the bus, you already have the driver, you're probably paying them for a block of 3 to 4 hours anyway. They can do the run twice. We don't have that. Every time they leave, they cost us that amount of money. What are your thoughts around who rides the bus at any given time?
I like if you can put them all on 1 bus, it's going to save money, especially with diesel $6 a gallon right now. Hopefully it comes down, but that's going to probably affect some of the run costs. You're saying 80,000, is that per year?
Yeah,
Per run?
per each run, it's about that.
80,000 per run per year.
And it's volatile too, because we need people to bid on whatever we post. And they may or may not. And bids that are left to no competition, or bids that no one bids on, we have to fill them. I don't think that that's happened very much in our daily runs, our regular runs, but it has happened when we have a special run, McKinney-Vento run, a special ed run. Like I said last time, cost between $112 and $550 a day, just because
Yeah.
we needed someone to do it.
I thought there was 3 main bus companies that service the district, but it seems like there's a lot more.
In the area, you mean? Oh,
No, for Hudson City School District. I thought there was just 3 main ones, but I saw there was other companies in there also.
well, we have some specialized transportation from Meta A, that's a white van, you know, they do medical transportation. I only see 3 on the list here, but there might be, you would know. There are
Kasaki has a few.
For our specialized transportation. The specialized ones that would likely be, like Ivana stated, a small van or a small bus.
Okay.
There might be other companies
All
doing
right, so the other ones are specialized
it.
transportation
But there are
companies.
just 3 doing our day-to-day runs.
Okay.
Brian, I don't know if this is a good time to ask about it. It is a transportation question. What about like the ASP buses and combining the sports, like practice at the late bus that we have at the secondary level and coordinating all of that? And that's one thing. And also ASP, I mean, that's a huge grant that comes from MHA. Would they be willing to take on, because I think we pay for that, yes? We pay for transportation for,
There are layers of irony here because they don't pay for the transportation for their kids, we do. There's unquestionably an opportunity for efficiency in the afternoon. It does, to some extent, come down to the same thing we're asking about with daily transportation. It's going to be early learners and not adults, but older students on the same bus.
yeah.
I think that has been part of the philosophy too, is like how do we keep them together or keep them apart? And I'm not positive about the times because there's really 3 things that go on after school every day, maybe 4, including athletics. So that's another thing that we're going to look at, Maureen, to see if there's an efficiency there.
And is it possible that MHA could take over the ASP costs?
We're going to talk to them
Transportation.
about a few things.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. There are other expenses too that the district pays for that aren't paid for in their grant to run that program.
Right,
Our students benefit, so there's a lot of mutual benefit there.
sure,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to, but just a thought
of
is
course.
all.
And we do have neighboring schools who you're saying that have their K through 12 going to the same building and riding on the same bus. It's not
Right.
like it's not done.
Right.
And some of the runs, my daughter's run has high school students on it. She's in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
So some of the runs are mixed.
Everyone is different. It's really weird to look at.
Do we have any solid numbers on how many students rely on transportation?
Bill's actually doing an audit right now.
Okay, because it seems like there's a lot more apparent drop-offs than there has been in the past.
This is agreed. Yeah, look at close a road and then see how many people are dropping their children off. I think, and now's a good time to do it. Really, the 2 heartbeat moments are in the first weeks of school and now, because people would have gotten into a groove and you would know, like, what is the sustainable level. You know, again, I say in the districts that have their own transportation, they might do a in-flight adjustment 3 or 4 times over the course of a year. They would say, you know what, it turns out that there used to be 35 kids on this bus, but now there's only 12 riding every day. Let's adjust the route a little bit. Let's eliminate a route by, that flexibility is a little harder, with the work that we're doing. Not that they're inflexible, because I know that you've seen the contracts. We've made adjustments as we've gone along. It's just not as easy.
Is it in the district's long-term plan to own its own transportation at some point?
There isn't right now. There are a lot of complexities, obviously. I think the most natural thing would be to try and partner with a district who owns a fleet and build on that. That's what, like you can see over on the other side of the river, some school districts have actually, who had their own fleets, have come together, so they create those efficiencies like Diana's talking about, where they have the same dispatcher, they have the same supervisor, they can use the same mechanics in the same place. So I think it's easier to actually join someone else than it would be to start from scratch with new buses, which only cost about $150,000 to $375,000 a piece. Having our own staff to drive, having a maintenance building, having the maintenance staff, a transportation supervisor, dispatcher, name a thing. So it's like, that's why it's so much easier to just say, hey, neighbor, what do you think about us having a couple buses in your parking lot?
I would like for us to entertain Mike's idea about buying a van, because he did bring that up, and I think that's a good idea for smaller runs or athletic events.
Yeah, where it's a little more than a 7-passenger van. if we had somebody on staff that had their CDL.
That's
And-
the magic.
I mean,
Which-
it's just a driving test, really.
It is drive test, I mean, there's CDL requirements, but that might save some cost overall after the initial expense of the van.
And somebody might
Um,
want to get
Or
a
something,
CDL.
yes.
Yeah, our current status is we can do itinerant driving because we don't have someone with that licensure. The hard thing is finding someone who has it. We can always train, and it's a special qualification of CDL.
Or you take one of the current company's bus drivers and give them a,
Turn Mike's mic off.
no, but we have, all the bus drivers are part-time drivers. So maybe they would do a subcontract with the school, drive the
Right.
school bus.
Right. The, so that is 100% one of the things that we thought about. And complicator is you can't just have one driver. You need to have two.
True.
But that's okay. But we have thought about how to do that.
And-
It's the expensive personnel in the vehicle.
From what I've seen, the majority of the bus drivers are retired people that are driving buses.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a couple hours in the morning, couple hours in the afternoon.
I mean, to me, that seems more like a long-term savings plan. Like, I think we need to balance how much we'd be spending
Exactly.
this year versus how much we'd be
Exactly.
saving. So, and
I think
trying to make,
it's 100% the path you should go down.
yeah.
Because then you become in control of these bizarre and escalating things, and you would, it creates autonomy that you don't currently have.
Well, it sounds like we're all pretty much on the same page that we're okay with efficiencies in transportation, even if it means picking up all of the students and not having separate buses for elementary and high school. Is anybody?
Correct.
Yeah, all the kids
I
are
concur.
brothers
Yeah.
and sisters
Yeah.
and cousins anyway.
I
Um,
believe most of the buses have aids on them now too, correct?
Yeah.
I think so.
To help the driver, so,
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if they all do, Mike.
okay.
I mean, I think if there's anything that can be done this year to get efficiencies for next budget year, I think we should explore all of them. I mean, I think structurally, this is another one of those big ticket items that the ideas that are being said here aren't gonna happen tomorrow, but, you know, maybe we need to, keep transportation on the forefront of the board's mind and see what we can do to reduce it overall, as a part of the budget, because it's been escalating, so much in recent years. Another issue that I know exists, you talk about contracts getting approved by the board. Bill Muirhead is going through, doing a lot as a consultant to clean up old contracts. The routes is a different thing, but I think we haven't been getting as much aid as we could have been eligible for as well. So we're seeing a revenue hit for how the program's been managed as well, which I'm under the assumption is getting cleaned up and not going to happen going forward.
When are the contracts due for the bus companies? Is it beginning of the year? Is it January 1st?
It's almost like a rolling, there is, when do they bid for September?
Soon, and in June is when we're looking at doing our bids.
Okay.
What we really need to get the bids approved by state ed, and that's how we're getting our aid back on the cost. So without approved contracts is why we've kind of struggled a little bit the last couple of years, because when those are brought up to state ed to get the reimbursement, they don't have approved contract numbers. And so that's part of the work, is that there's been runs that we have been doing for several years, but they never went to state ed for
Okay.
approval. And if they're not approved, then they won't reimburse us for that amount.
Okay, so if we go in and say, hey, we want to cut, or we want you to combine runs for next school year, will that be affected in this coming budget? Or is that something we're going to be looking at?
No, the hope, absolutely. Our hope would be that we are actively working on this now, and that
Okay.
so we could see something for next year. I mean, this is a critical time. It does take time, though. So we wanted to talk to you this evening about combination of the students in conjunction with what we have now, and that would be a change. But now that we've kind of had this discussion, we can move forward with making some adjustments. And then you would do a new bid based on the routes that we feel like we would need, which would be different than the ones we currently have.
So then basically, like, within 3 to 4 months, we gotta have this, the route scored away, so
Oh,
they put it
yeah.
to bid and have it ready to go.
Right.
Okay.
That's why.
Within a month.
Well, so, yeah, within a month.
Yeah.
Yeah,
knowing
realistically.
knowing now that we can rethink how those runs are done is gonna be very influential in what happens next.
Okay.
The other thing, to Matt's point, transportation, long-term transportation thoughts, long-term reserve plans. Reserve should be a 5-year planning. As you're, for the, now's not a great time to have conversations about reserves, because we are all hands on deck trying to just make things run. But reserves are a critical part of a healthy school district, and to be able to project out a number of years is a huge benefit. So that means that we're saving accordingly, or you're saving accordingly in preparation for a rainy day, or for something you know that's happening. Like, as a for instance, there are a number of units that there is a payout at retirement. It is not in any of the reserves. It has to come out of the general fund. That's not good practice, especially when you can predict years in advance. Some of the units allow you to predict years in advance. That money should be saved specifically for that. And if we tried a little bit, you could predict how many people in 27, 28, and 29 might be retiring and better prepare. That's where the magic happens, because then it's not reactionary, it's just executing the plan. And, you know, you see that we brought up the reserves 3 or 4 times throughout the budget season. And the Finance Committee, that's their job would be also to monitor the health of those reserves and considerations of impacts that might come in the future. So, I mean, that's great. Finance Committee this year is a new committee. It's an opportunity for the board to start talking about these long-term things. You get to the end of a school year, you yield some savings, you invest that money in one of your reserves. It'll, you know, snowball effect. It's good investment practices.
And to be clear, if you want to put the reserves back up, of the 4.7 million, there's only about 800 that's really accessible. I mean, the bottom 4 reserves are all specific allocations, I think, that we can't.
Yeah, the 4.7 are in those categories.
But I'm saying the bottom 4 reserves are all, like, there's virtually no discretion, right? If there's unemployment, it come out of there. Repair. We know we spend retirement every year.
Right,
We have that, we can allocate, I believe,
right.
but that's there for, you know, difficult decision times, I guess is my point.
Right.
Of the things on your list, the other one I was curious about was the summer instructional programming. Obviously important, but I think with a lot of these things, like what's the utilization rate? How many students are in each classroom? Are there ways to make it more efficient? Do we know anything about that?
The secondary summer school last year cost about $200,000. And there's $90,000 in this current budget. The 63.1 million has 90,000 in it. It's not enough to do what we did last year, but we know that we have students who desperately need credit recovery, so having a discussion around how we mitigate that cost is important. I don't know what other programs exist in the community. I was at Guildland for many years running the summer school, and people from all around would send their kids to Guildland to take summer classes, 6 weeks of summer classes. I've also been in districts where they don't do the strict 6 weeks. They do other kinds of credit recovery, in-person instruction combined with online, you know, a marriage of a bunch of different things. But I feel like the 30 to 40 was the number that was enrolled. Do you remember in high school? 40? And we did other things too. Like I said, we did other programs in other buildings. I think for the summer, that is a thing where we should start from 0 and then add to what do we think is going to be crucially, essentially important for the success of our kids that will still allow us to keep the employees that we have the rest of the year. So like just the absolute essentials for what we do in summer programming.
Aren't we required to have a program for the sped kids?
We are. We could be in district or we could send them out of district. My recommendation would be to continue the program in district. It's better for,
So we have to
The
make sure
students,
that's in the budget.
but even that being said, the New York State controls those programs. It's very prescriptive. The hours of the day are prescriptive. The duration of it is prescriptive. We didn't do that last year. We did our own thing that was completely over what is the requirement of the state. We need to be as focused and accurate and conservative as we possibly can. And that's really what we're aiming to do, is we're considering which one of those numbers that you're considering as part of the budget. That'll tell us how focused we have to be.
Is there a difference between like online instruction versus in person in terms of cost? And could you like have the younger kids do in person, and for the older kids like have more of a mix between online and in person?
I think all of us would argue in person is always more impactful. There are some students who thrive never having any human contact. There are some adults like that too. But we know instruction is almost always more effective in person. So, and I've seen, like I said, all in person, a marriage of the two, or just online. And some of the kids are successful, just not all of them in each of those.
And I think when you're talking about credit recovery, students who had a challenging time in the classroom, the demands of online or remote learning can be much greater.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
Yeah.
students who have already indicated that they may need additional support.
Right.
Do we provide transportation for the summer also?
We have been, for the same equity reason I mentioned before.
Okay.
We never did in Guilderland. Every single one of
Mhm.
those 500 kids, their parents drove them to school, and if they missed more than 3 days, they were out.
Okay.
It's different place, different situation, and a different time. So we provide it.
How about joining forces with other schools to combine summer school programs?
Don't other schools come here
Yeah,
for
we've done
theirs?
that before.
We have done that before,
To help offset the cost.
yes.
Yeah, you just tuition if you send them somewhere else. It wouldn't mitigate transportation. There's value, like I said, with extended school year for our students with disabilities, for kids being in their own district with their own teachers. Sometimes there's value to that. It comes down to what's practicable with our cost.
And if we don't have credit recovery, in the summer,
You see
what
the
does,
writing, yeah.
what happens to our graduation rate?
Yep.
How do those kids recover?
Yeah.
Over the course of their 4 years or 3 years or
And I'm gonna drop the ball right in front of you and say, every dollar that you spend coming up in this following school year, you need to ask, what did it do? What were the results? If we continue to do that, if you continue to do that, then you will realize efficiencies like never before. We know that we've invested money that didn't deliver on a return, and we did it maybe more than once. And it's not by necessarily any part of the fault of the people who are in the machine, but we should only be doing things in schools that yield benefits for children, and we can see the results. And if we can't, we need to change direction. All of us, would easily admit to that.
What are some of the BOCE contracts that you have on there?
Well, the only one that came to mind, like right off the top of my head, Mike, is we contract for instructional coaches, a certain number of days per year. It's probably $30,000 to $45,000. That's aidable. We get 36% back in the following year.
Okay.
And again, I don't know what the value is that it's yielded. That's the question that we need to ask. And that's just an easy thing to call out. So I'm not saying it's not been effective. I'm just saying it's there. Are there other ways for us to do that? We have department chairs. We have other people that maybe have knowledge that can help. I don't know.
So is it more like professional development type classes? Or?
Yeah, they step into classrooms. Teachers might invite them in and say, I'm working on the standard. Can you help me figure out how to help the students better learn something? They might be working on curriculum development. The standards it's like a ever grinding machine. The standards have changed so much in the last 10 years, again, as well as the assessment. So they can come in and help say, oh, here's what the state's been doing, and here's the help with the language around that, or here's a common assessment you should be developing. This
And
is what the
are
regions
they
doing.
helping?
Say it again, Mike.
Are they helping? Are we getting results by having them in?
Let's find out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just chime in with Mike, from my experience, when we changed our standards in science, we had people come in to talk to us about the new standards and the new test. They also do the trainings for chemical hygiene and that sort of thing. So there's a whole plethora of stuff that's in that little sentence right there.
Okay.
So it's a lot of things. You can't really simply answer it with simply
Okay.
saying what they
Okay.
do. It is a lot of
I mean,
stuff.
not being in this industry, I mean, that's what I'm wondering.
Oh, no, for sure.
What are the programs, and are there any that can come out, some that have to stay? And is there a benefit to having them
That's a
here?
great question. I just
I just,
wanted to help you out,
Okay.
understand that a little bit.
thank you.
Brian, what input have you gotten from the building leaders and
That's a good
the
question.
teachers association, the different
Union
union
people.
leaders, and in terms of ideas of where to trim and where to pull or what to do?
This is very hard
It is very hard.
for people, not just because we're talking about people. This is very hard because this is not something that, all right, I don't even know that they conceptualized last year. I don't think that they were involved last year in some of the decisions, or many of the decisions that were made. This is very hard because they see it as real and tangible. And this is the worst thing that I have to say. There is no choice. There's not a choice to say, I think this is important, I don't want to get rid of it. This is a very difficult, awkward place where there isn't a choice. So it's which is the least harmful choice.
So you
I
had
will say
that, so you talked to them about it?
it's been very difficult for the leaders to contemplate any of this. I think where our job is to try and help them see some of the rocks under the water, or the things that by doing this one thing, it's going to cause a ripple effect of harm somewhere else. Like we were talking about CTE programs. That's some kids in 7th grade have been dreaming about going to be an auto mechanic, and by changing that trajectory, you've changed their life forever. But if we cut a certain program or support at the elementary school, will that child ever, get to their reading capacity? Will they meet their social emotional need? Will they know about science? I mean, we're trying to help them look at this from it's not just this one thing. What are the 3 things around it, or what are the 5 things that come next? But it is very, very, very hard for every single person that is having this conversation. And as I mentioned before, when it comes down to having to really be definitive before we talk about things out in here, we'll have to have discussions with everybody that might affect. And even when we do that, that's not definitive. We have to have a hard conversation with someone. That does not mean that what we're talking about is going to happen. It just means that it's going to be talked about, and that's a possibility. But it is emotional all the way around. Every single person, even if they're a 35-year employee here, is emotional all the way around for every single person.
So, as a reminder for the calendar, so we're going to meet again for a budget workshop on the 14th.
Did you say 14th?
The 14th, yeah. We're meeting on the 21st, our regular meeting, in which we're scheduled to approve a budget. So I guess for the 14th, thinking back to the slide that has the 63 million on top, what I'd like to see myself is I guess plans for cutting between $2.5 and $4.5 million. I mean, so we know what the options are. We can make decisions. It can be presented. People have an opportunity, to digest it and understand what kind of decisions we're going to make on the 21st.
We have to give you a menu of choices. And I use that in as limited a capacity as possible because, as I said, there's not going to be a choice. It's going to be impactful. The things that we're going to have to try and do are going to be impactful. It just navigating between what is the lesser of the bad choice or hard choice.
So on the 14th, you'll have numbers.
Yeah, we'll
Yep.
be talking about real
Yeah.
things.
Yep.
And I mean, the hope is that, in those two short meetings, that we come to some kind of conclusion, and we know that we have until the 24th, which is that Friday, to get the work done. Not that we want to do it on the last day, because that's when our homework is due to the state. But we're meeting on the 21st, that's when we'd like to approve it. It has to be done by Friday. I would say by Thursday, to make sure that we can submit it to the state.
I just want to clarify, by numbers, I meant money,
Oh, yeah.
numbers.
No, I know, yeah. Numbers in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we still owe you some feedback right now on tax cap and reserves. Which, while this is up, I would point out that if we went all the way to the left and did the 2% increase, and only spent the 1.8 million of our fund balance, that total revenue and budget figure is actually less than our budget this year.
Mhm.
So I don't think
I think
that's an option.
Yeah, well, I think if you want to do the math on that too, the reserves, we spent $900,000 this
Mhm.
year, and we allocated $2 million of fund balance. So in that left column, $1.8 million. This year, we used $3 million for
Yep.
basically for that box. So.
Yeah, that's why. So yeah, last year was 58,544,000. So even 3.44%, and the 1.8 is still less than that. So with that, if I look at that, it seems to me that it'd be very, very difficult to not go out with a 5% tax levy.
That's I guess that's why I think 2.5 to 4.5 million puts us in that right column, and we know what decisions we're making. I think that we'll have to decide. What I would tell you is I don't know that we can make a decision tonight on the unassigned fund balance, just because I think those are those decision-making units, right? If something is 250,000 and the case is made that we need it, I think that's where we have play to make those decisions.
Mhm.
What was the budget last year?
58,544,000. And as Matt was just saying, 3 million of it was from our bank account. So we recognize you
Savings.
can only do that so many times until your bank account's empty.
I just had another thought or idea I'm going to throw out. So it's in the teacher's contract, there's a MOA that there's an incentive, a retirement incentive, that is, 3-year, 2-year, 1-year kind of thing. What about offering a retirement incentive now, like in addition to that? Or if somebody was had the time in, had the, had the years, whatever, wasn't really planning, but maybe, it might give someone a little push or, encouragement to retire earlier than they anticipated. Would that be, how helpful would that be in the scheme of things?
It's interesting, there's a cost expenditure
Sure.
for doing that as well. Not
Right, you have
just
to put money out to,
But
to
you'd be
reap it.
hiring for half the price.
Say it again, Diane.
But you'd be hiring for half the price or not rehiring.
Right. So
And the
we-
savings continue in the
we
following
would-
year.
yeah. We would actualize breakage, which means the difference between the new and the former staff member, I didn't say old, and hiring the new person, or we would not fill it at all. There's 4 people slated in the teacher unit, which is our largest unit. There's 4 people right now slated to retire next year and 1 in the following year. That doesn't mean that there aren't more that are age eligible, just they're the ones because they 3 years ahead of time can transmit their
Right.
wishes, yeah. So it's a small number at this juncture, but we will look into it. I will say that, or have been looking into it, but from my experience, I was always told that it became more cost onerous on the district. But look at all the factors: insurance, the cost of the initial salary, and whether you rehire or not. That changes the game. It's different than it was just 10 years ago. Those
Yeah.
costs are all so different than just
Sure.
10 years ago, so the rules around it may have changed.
Do we have the final insurance numbers from RCG for next year? That is reflected? Okay. Okay. And that, of course, we could get hit with a bill middle of the year anyway, right? Yeah.
For the prescription drug
Yeah.
true-up, which is a 2-month reserve that we have to maintain.
Yeah.
So just really broadly, does everybody feel okay about saying that we're trying to hit a number in the high 59s?
59 range, yeah.
Somewhere in those, not the rightmost column, but the 2 to the left of that is what you're
Yeah, it would
suggesting?
sort of be somewhere in between there. And
Yeah.
then we, finesse the percentage number and finesse the unassigned fund balance number
Yep.
and figure out the right balance of each.
So somewhere in here.
Yeah.
No, I did hear. Yes.
Broad
That is
sweep.
helpful.
It's like Jeopardy.
We'll continue to look for revenue as well. We've been talking about aid that somehow miraculously might come up, or
Right.
something else that we discover.
Yeah, that would be. Just keep in mind, last year too, we came very close to spending our budget, but had a lot of excess revenue. So it would be really unfortunate if we made a bunch of cuts and then come October, November, find out we had an excess of $2-3 million in revenue. So really like to avoid that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions?
I'm pretty sure I was pretty clear about what I wanted to do.
Oh, good. I just think overall, if there are numbers that have to be reduced, we'll look throughout the whole school, not just certain areas.
Yeah, being equitable for sure. But yeah, that is our next step. We will be going into executive session right now to talk about some specific positions, and just out of respect for everybody that works here, don't want to do that publicly until we know how the whole board feels and what different priorities we're weighing. But that would be, and Dr. Bailey has said multiple times that any of those conversations will be had with staff and unit leaders before anybody hears anything publicly as well. So that is very, very important to us, that everybody knows that. But just to piggyback on what Max said, Matt said, important dates are April 13th. We have the Code of Conduct Subcommittee meeting at 3:30 to 5 p.m. Tuesday, we have a policy committee meeting from 5 to 7 in the high school library. And then we're going to hold the next board budget workshop immediately following that. So it'll be a 7 p.m. start time. And yeah, hopefully at that meeting we'll make decisions about real concrete numbers and real things to prepare ourselves for the meeting on Tuesday, the 21st at 6 p.m., which will be in the high school library. That is the meeting where we need to ideally approve the budget that we're going out with. Thursday, the 23rd, is voter registration day from 4 to 8 p.m. And then also, if we pushed off our vote on the 21st, that would be the day that we would have a special meeting just to do that, which we did last year. And then Wednesday, April 29th, nominating petitions are due by 5 p.m. in the district office for anybody running for one of 2 open board seats. And then Tuesday, May 5th, is the budget hearing at 6 p.m. in the high school auditorium. And then the vote would be later on in May. All right.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, so we thank you all for being here. At this time, we do have a need for a second executive session to discuss the employment history of particular persons or persons. There'll be no further business after executive session. Make a motion to enter at 7:03 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?